right, and welcome to the CCC News Podcast. Today, we are joined with Aaron Quinn, the Klickitat County Health Director, and also we have with us Leah Becknell, who is a public health consultant and has her master's in public health. Aaron, you're a family nurse practitioner as well, and we're kicking off, or not kicking off, for mid-month here or so on Mental Health Awareness Month, and so we're going to chat a little bit today about a campaign you guys have going on. It's the 988 campaign, which is the national hotline for suicide prevention. So, how's that going so far? And well, actually, before we go there, Aaron, I found it fascinating when I looked back through kind of your arc and your career. You're from Goldendale. You went to Columbia Gorge Community College. We're in the first graduating class from the nursing program there?
I was, yep.
Yeah.
2003, I believe.
All right. So born and raised here in the...
Not born, but raised, yes. Okay. Yeah. We moved when I was 2, I think, so. But,
excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. And Leah, you were telling us a little bit earlier that you had worked for Procter & Gamble, and this is kind of your second career. You really glommed on to wanting to help folks and the health field and that kind of thing. But you came from Ohio and were an electrical engineer. Did I get that right?
Yeah. Yes, I'm an undergrad in electrical engineering, and I worked for almost 30 years in IT, information technology for Procter & Gamble. And I just had a passion for health and wellness and community health in particular. And so pursued my master's and moved out here kind of at the same time, and am happy to be a Klickitat County resident and be able to contribute to community health and wellness. I also have about 8 years working in crisis administration services as well.
Very good. Well, we're lucky to have you. I know you moved out from Ohio. You chose to move to Goldendale, and thank goodness for that. Thank you so much. Well, thank you both for coming today here, and tell us a little bit about the 988 campaign and how that's going so far.
Good. Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
Why don't you start, Aaron? Because
Okay.
I think what's important maybe is to have a little background as far as why we started working on this at the beginning of the year.
Okay. So I oversee behavioral health for Klickitat County in the crisis program, and really see kind of what happens when you don't get help before it becomes emergent, and understanding that in this area, and specifically in Klickitat County, that we don't have very many resources for mental health services, and really started doing a little bit of a deep dive into what resources we can offer people in the absence of boots on ground services within the county. And so 988 was one of the things that came up for a long time. If you had a crisis and you needed help, it was a 1-800 number. So, it's a 9-digit number that's in a crisis. It's going to be really hard, to find that number. What is it? How do I remember it? Where can I get that from? And just really loved the idea of 988. It's really simple. It's easy to remember, and really wanted to start pushing kind of that as a resource for our community. Public health received some funding this year specifically that would allow us to promote this.
Yeah.
And so brought Leah on board and are really trying to maximize just getting the word out. I have had a lot of people tell me they had never heard of 988 before we started talking about it.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, and you raise a really interesting point there that folks a lot of times don't reach out until they kind of reach that crisis point. I've had my own personal experience that way. Didn't really think much of mental health and wasn't taking care of myself really properly, and it got kind of not quite there, but I was pretty close to having some real issues, and it was very helpful to get in touch with my doctor and some other folks who put me in the right place to get some counseling and that kind of thing, and it was nice or very, very healthy actually to get that help because it was something that could be solved actually, with some counseling. So, yeah.
Good. I really appreciate that you shared that, because I think with Mental Health Awareness Month, one of the things is people don't talk about their own experiences. Yeah. They don't share that they had a hard time and that they did get help and that they can feel better. So thank you. I appreciate that you shared that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and I think that's very common. And probably most of the people that we run into have had a life struggle here or there or consistently. And while some people may have a support structure, whether it's a family member or a really good friend they can call on in those times of stress, not everyone does
Right.
for whatever reasons.
Yeah.
And so, having an alternative with trained counselors on the end of that phone to be able to talk you through some of those difficult things and help you connect you to resources is really important.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Yeah. So this is a national campaign that we have that's going on. But you guys are taking kind of the local role here in the Klickitat County and the Gorge. So.
Correct. If I could give a little background about the 988. So the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline has been in existence for over 20 years. But as Aaron mentioned, it was an 800 number, and there were also a network of other 800 local numbers in states and counties and that sort of thing. And a couple of years ago, the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, often referred to as SAMHSA, federal agency, really campaigned well to move to this 988, the 3-digit calling number. So we're all familiar with 911. In fact, I'm old enough to remember when 911 came out, and instead of having to call a local number for your police officers, and for emergency services in general. And so, that was really game changing in terms of people being able to readily access emergency services when they needed it. And so it's been a long time coming, I think, for us to have something similar for mental health and substance use disorder services, and being able to call a 3-digit number for that. And so that's the new part. The services have been around for quite a while, but that new part is that easily remembered number.
Right.
And yet, as Aaron mentioned, as we get out and talk to people, there's still a lot of folks that haven't heard about it.
Right.
So there's a lot of work to do
Yeah.
to be able to make this as well known and as well understood as calling 911.
I actually see that you have some bumper stickers, maybe, or some stickers there. That,
I do.
Yeah.
So this is one of the primary marketing tools that we're using.
Oh, okay.
So it's very simple. Just you matter. That's the important part. Is
Right.
that all of us really do matter.
Yeah.
And there's 3 options. You can text, you can call, or you can also chat through the website. And it's simple. It's 988. That's all it is. Suicide Crisis Lifeline. And that gets you connected with a counselor who can help. I think it's important to also make sure that we have quite a large Spanish-speaking community. And so having the materials available in Spanish as well is part of a key component of our campaign.
Yeah.
And so you'll see, if you drive around in Klickitat County, you'll see more and more of this signage between billboards. We've got some awesome street banners in White Salmon and Bingen, where our mayors were super supportive and allowed us to take up some of that space. We've got posters in various places around the community. So we're starting out with a lot of signage and also getting into the schools.
Yeah.
So that's an important campaign element, particularly as the school year starts to wind down.
Sure.
And a lot of those support structures for our students kind of take a hiatus. They don't disappear, but they take maybe a bit of a hiatus over the summertime and aren't quite as prevalent as they might get services in the school. And so we're actually having presentations done at the schools, 988 coming up later this month, as well as signage in the schools too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and just kind of going back to my own experience, it was kind of a transition point for me, actually, that kind of triggered my situation. It was a career, big career shift. But I would see that like with the younger folks, who are coming up like in high school and that kind of thing, that there's a lot of growth and transitioning that's going on. Is that... there's some key elements to, I don't know, I'm just maybe finding a thread there myself, but is there an element to that kind of,
Yeah, transitions are hard for all of us,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
And I think for young people, going through adolescence is such a transition in so many ways that it tends to be a critical point in many people's development. You mentioned, I think there's very few of us that haven't been touched by suicide or mental illness,
Yes.
Either for ourselves or our family members.
Yes.
I had a friend in high school die by suicide. And it was quite a few years ago, and services weren't as even talked about as much as they are now.
Right.
So it's a real thing. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about any of what you experience with students and kind of adolescent age.
So as part of the crisis services for Klickitat County, my staff do respond specifically to the schools. And I think I looked yesterday, I think we've had a handful of calls so far since January. I want to say 3 or 4. But we're responding there. And we've recently identified some ways which we could actually have a bigger presence within the schools because we think we're missing some touch points that would make a difference. But, most adolescents have a phone. They can text. You can text 988. They just have to put the number in there and you can talk about things. We've encouraged people. 988 is suicide prevention and crisis prevention, but also, if you're having some depression or anxiety, if you need resources, if you don't know how to talk to your friend to ask them how they're okay, you can just text with them and say, like, I need to have this conversation. Like, help me with some words. I have somebody that needs resources. What are my options? And they can get all of that help just through text. They can call if they want that. More of a conversation. A lot of the people that I've worked with feel more comfortable texting.
Yeah,
it's a challenge for people to talk through their crisis or but feel more comfortable if they can put it in a text.
Right.
And so that's been something that I have gotten feedback that's been helpful for people.
Yeah.
So specifically family members that are having struggles that they don't know what to offer that family member. So you don't have to be the one that's having the crisis.
Right.
You can ask for help for someone else.
Huh. Fantastic. Yeah. That's a kind of a breakthrough moment, especially like if you could put it into a text or something like that. Like sometimes these things just sit below the surface for a while and it's hard to get them up to the surface where you can deal with them. Sometimes you don't know what they are. Sometimes even, but it's fantastic. What a great thought. I didn't even recognize the text thing. That's a great idea. Well, hey, on that note, let's take a quick break. We're going to go to our sponsors and we'll come right back. But wow, what a great conversation. Much appreciated. Hey, Josh, did you know that we are funded by our readers in large part?
I did know that, but please tell me more.
Yeah, it's our local readers here that make it possible for us to go out and gather news on local businesses and important issues in our community. And so we need people to support local news. Did you know you can make a difference in our community's economy and culture by supporting local journalism? I bet you did. But maybe you out there don't. And so you should visit our Support Us page at cccnews.com to subscribe to a monthly donation to keep news local and start making a difference in our community today. Again, that's cccnews.com.
And remember, CCC News is available for everyone and funded by readers.
All right, and we're back. We're here with Leah Becknell and Aaron Quinn. Leah Becknell is public health consultant, and Aaron is Klickitat County public health director. Excuse me. And we were just talking about the 988 phone line for crisis and that kind of thing. But can you tell me a little bit more about what it's like when you actually make that phone call? What can people expect on the other end of the line?
So once you make the decision to engage with 988, whether it's through the online chat, through a text message, through the phone call, they're going to ask you a couple questions. They want to make sure that you get to the right person that can help you best. So if you're a veteran, there's an option. They'll connect you to the veterans line that most folks are familiar with. That's been advertised pretty well. There's a tribal line. So if that's something that is the best fit for you, that you are speaking with your peers.
Sure.
If you speak Spanish, they'll connect you to Spanish speakers. And then also if you're LGBTQI+, that's an option as well for you to choose. So once you answer the questions, so they get you to the right person, sometimes it takes a minute or two for somebody to get right on the line. They always say, just please wait. Someone's coming. Someone will be there and speak with you. And then just really should be connected with someone who's a trained counselor. very non-judgmental. They'll talk to you about what your concern is for that day and how they can help you. One of the things that has been really nice about 988 is when you call 911, if you're having an emergency, you're going to get law enforcement or maybe an ambulance. 988 is not going to be lights and sirens. Right. It's going to be just a conversation. If they determine that there's a need for 911, obviously they would engage, but it's just a conversation. Nobody's going to come to your door, so it's very confidential. And then really it's just about the conversation, and they might give you resources. They might work with you to make a safety plan, how you can be safe in your home. They provide some level of follow-up. So they'll say, hey, is it okay if I call you back tomorrow and make sure you're okay? So they'll do some check-in points that way as well. So.
Oh, very good. Well, that's a really important detail, is having folks that you can relate to when you get on that line. It does seem to me that the relationship, in that conversation is really important in getting people the help they may need. And I was kind of thinking too, is like probably folks who are calling in, they just don't feel well, right? Like, I mean, that's how I felt. I was very, I don't know, just kind of hopeless. Maybe hopeless is a pretty good word for it, but they helped me dive in to what was, kind of closer to the root of that. Maybe not the full root, but what are some of the details kind of, and it immediately kind of punctured that bubble, and it's kind of a very, very helpful in at least getting me to the next point. So, yeah, fascinating. So, tell us a little bit more about the overall program, as far as Klickitat County Health goes. Can you talk to me about some of the other reach that you guys have as far as the health district goes?
So as far as promoting for 988, yes. Obviously, you know how funding works within systems. And so really this was intended for outreach to Klickitat County residents. So obviously we really promoted that. But I'll have the conversation with anyone that asks. Like, I don't care where you live. 988 doesn't care where you live. Although maybe this would be kind of a good time do you want to talk about how they do the geolocation and how that works as well?
Yeah. So we mentioned 911 when it came out, and 988 as well. One of the key things about the both of these lines is it's uses geolocating technology. So that means it doesn't matter what cell phone you call from, or your landline, whatever that area code. It doesn't matter. It's where you are personally, and that way we can direct your call to the local 988 hub. So 988 is national, but it's actually really a network of hubs in each state. So there may be multiple hubs in each state. And the idea is to send those calls to the 988 hub that's closest to you, just like 911 does. So send it to the closest one to you. So our calls are going to be answered by people in Washington State. Yeah. And those folks are going to be familiar with, where is Klickitat County? Right. And what are the, that it's a large county but small population. They'll have resources that they know of. If a call, if for some reason that 988 hub was overwhelmed with calls for some reason, which doesn't typically happen, your call might be routed to another 988 hub, so you wouldn't have no answer. But certainly someone from Louisiana, for instance, might have a different accent and might not be as familiar. So really trying to use that geolocation to get people to, a hub that's in their own state with folks that know what our state is about is part of that experience that helps people connect in a positive way. Not that someone from another state couldn't help, but I think there is that familiarity that allows that connection to be established between the caller or texter and the counselor on the other line. So that geolocation point isn't about then trying to pinpoint where you live or anything like that. It's still confidential, but it allows that call to be routed in a way that's most likely to bring the kind of connection and resources to the.
That's what I was going to say.
That's what it's about.
Connection to resources.
And we know we experience 911. I've had to call 911 myself when there was I was first on scene for a car accident. Luckily, it was not fatal or anything like that. Thank goodness. But but somebody needed service. services. And, we value that for our emergency vehicles to come quickly. I think in a similar way, we value having 988 be geolocated so it can go to resources in our state who are most familiar with our geography, our challenges, our resources.
Very good. And that's probably, I'm guessing here, but I'm guessing that system has improved greatly over the years, that getting it into a local person that knows the resources, the networks that exist for safety nets.
Exactly. And part of our campaign was going back to our 988 hub provider and working through them. What resources do you have? When was the when did you most recently update these? Let's make sure that things will change, but kind of establishing that stronger connection so that when someone does call from Klickitat, they have the latest information around what resources we do have and where to direct people. And being on the Oregon border, as well, some of those resources might be in Oregon.
Yeah.
And so, and we, cross that river on a regular basis to take advantage of those resources, whether it's something for, our home or personal life, or it's something for our mental health and wellness.
Yeah, and that's right. And I would guess that our folks in the Mid-Columbia, travel around, that, you may be experiencing an issue. Maybe you're in Hood River, but you live in the Dalles, or maybe you're in, Goldendale, but, you're from Hood River, or vice versa. So it's great to have that connectivity in that.
Yeah. So you're right. I mean, it has greatly improved. I mean, moving to that 3-digit was just, it was really leaps and bounds being able to bring this to the forefront. And when I think, as people, when that initially happened, perhaps, we were listening for it because of our roles, more so than the typical community member. And then it's kind of dissipated a bit because it was big news when they went to the 3-digit number, and then it's kind of dropped off a bit in terms of, hitting the airwaves and that sort of thing, and the local media and national media. And so I think that's going to be an opportunity ongoing to continue to share information around 988.
Yeah, and we, here at CCC News, we should probably get something put together for you guys too. Like, it wouldn't be hard to develop some kind of a quick, dial 988 for additional help, or whatever. We could do something like that.
Yeah, we would love that.
Yeah,
that would be awesome.
Why not?
Yeah.
It's very important, and again, if you can get to folks before they get to that crisis point, and maybe you can talk to me a little bit about that, like, what are some signs or some indicators? I maybe, I haven't been in a great mood, of not feeling kind of depressed for a week or two or what, but is there some signs maybe that folks should be looking for that say, maybe it's time to reach out and get some help on this?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think change from your baseline is is an important one, because we all have our own baseline. Some people, sleep, like a rock every night, kind of thing. Other people don't. But, changes in sleep patterns can be kind of thing, but it's really what's your baseline. Eating patterns could be substance use, whether, legal substance use, might be, increasing over what your baseline is.
Okay.
It could be, eating weight loss, significant weight gain, some of those more kind of physical signs.
Okay.
But then I think there's also the components of, what's going on in your mind.
Right.
What are you thinking about? And maybe you want to share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I just think for a lot of people, emotional distress. So maybe some racing thoughts, inability to focus where you maybe focused really well before. If somebody talks to you, maybe your performance at work, somebody, says, hey, you're not doing as well as you normally do. Do you have anything you'd like to talk about? And I think your emotional state, being really anxious, I think that's, a concern for a lot of people that don't know how to manage that. Sometimes that might even just manifest as a racing heart, or, any thoughts of killing yourself or hurting someone else.
Right.
That would be something that's a little bit more, urgent, obviously.
Yeah.
And then I think maybe we haven't done as good of a job just through our conversations of really highlighting substance use. And maybe you aren't sure if you're using too much, and that, that maybe that's something you evaluate with your 988 call as well. So if your substance use is impacting your relationships or your career or your ability to perform day-to-day routine tasks, I think that was a good time to reach out. Well, hopefully before that, but
Yeah.
Also
I had
then.
a family member who he was kind of a perfectionist. And so that at least I think that was kind of some of his issues stemmed from that. But then there was substance use too. And the two things kind of worked against each other because it's hard to be really good when you're, using substances sometimes. And so, yeah, but thank you for bringing that up. That's pretty good.
And I think for youth, changes in their friendships can be something that could be worth,
Yeah.
concerning yourself to learn more. Could be change in, if you're always a great student and then you're not doing so well.
Yeah.
Changes. That's kind of like the work performance for an adult, but for students, it would be more about how they're doing on their schoolwork. Is certainly something that would be, a concern that there's been changes from that baseline in particular. So, key thing to kind of look out. But I think one of the points that we really want to make sure people understand is that, it's called Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. You personally don't have to be at the state of feeling suicidal, wanting to kill yourself, or in a state of extreme crisis to reach out and ask for help. In fact, that would be our goal overall, is that people don't wait so long.
Right.
And are able to not just only recognize the baseline, something's off, but feel like they can reach out for help to 988. I think I would love to live in a world where nobody is in crisis.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, probably not likely to happen. I realize that, but but at least fewer people are in crisis, and we have more opportunity for people to reach out for help, whether it's 988 or to a trusted family member or friend or community member, but to really try to reach out sooner.
Yeah. And it's just getting over that sense of like, we're all going to need help at some point, right?
Yes.
And that it's just better to recognize that earlier on. And, at least I personally did not grow up with that being, kind of taught to me necessarily. But it's something that's become ever so much more clear as I've gotten older, is that like, hey, it takes, you got to have a good group of people around, a good group of friends, but, and then finding those people to reach out to before things, get escalated, right? Like, a rumination or something like that, you have the same idea kind of rolling around. Well, I find that if I talk it out with somebody, they absolutely eliminate that unsubstantiated fear or whatever that anxiety is that's connected with it. And but it's one of these things we gotta talk to people about, right? And say like, hey, it's okay to reach out. And
it's okay to not be okay.
Right?
Every day.
To some degree, right?
And some days are okay, some days are not so okay. It's okay to not be okay. And I think that's part of what, people who do go on to have counseling services, or, I think part of the counseling goal is just the recognition of when you're not okay, and then that plan of how are you going to get back to okay.
Right.
And that's what, people call your safety net, your safety plan, or your, kind of support structure, or, whatever terminology you use. But it's that, real basic, how do I figure out when I'm not doing okay, and what am I going to do to get okay? And that may involve people, and may involve things like, taking time to take care of yourself. And a little bit of self-care is not selfish. It's important. If we don't take care of ourselves, we can't be our best person.
That's right.
And work in our community, support our families.
Great thought. Well, hey, let's take a little break here. We'll come back. We'll go out to our sponsors, get a quick message, and we'll come right back. Hey, Robin, I just did a story this morning about my daughter who's hiking the PCT.
That's special. I love that.
Yeah, and she's a 2019 grad of the Dallas High School, and she's doing this kind of awesome thing, and I'm so proud of her. But also at the same time, I really enjoy bringing local news to folks and bringing relevant information.
That's really evident from your work, Tom.
Yeah.
I mean, the internet is full of misinformation or poor quality information or AI-produced information. And here we have something different at CCC News, right? We're local people generating local content with journalistic integrity and trying to build trust with our audience because that's what they deserve, right?
Right. And so how does that benefit our advertisers?
Well, being seen next to content that's really relevant, that's really trustworthy and really credible adds credibility to our advertisers because our viewers and readers see those advertisers next to that really honest, credible local information, and it really builds that brand into a basis of trust and really helps businesses reach people from that basis of trust.
Yeah, awesome. And boy, and to all those folks who are supporting us, it makes a huge difference in us being able to get this job done of keeping folks informed of what's happening in local government, entertainment, all sorts of venues throughout the Gorge.
Yeah, we have really high integrity in our journalistic standards, and so you're always verifying all this information constantly with multiple sources of people. You know, we don't try not to do one source stories here, or just take a piece of information from the government and run with it. You know, we really try and drill down and get to the meat and potatoes of what's there.
That's the joy. Yeah.
That's great. Well, if you want to keep reading, go to cccnews.com. And if you want to support us, look for our support us tab there. And really grateful for any support that people can make. Yeah. The more support we get from our local audience, the less we have to rely on advertisers and the more journalistic freedom we get.
Yeah, absolutely. And those interested in advertising can always reach out to me at tom@cccnews.com or call me at 541-980-2756.
Great. Thanks, Tom.
You bet. Right, and we're back talking with Erin Quinn and Leah Beckham. Bechdel. Sorry, my apologies. Yes. So, Erin, can you kind of take us over a little bit more one last time on the 988 program and what that all entails?
Yeah, so just kind of as a recap for 988, so you can call 988, you can text 988, you can get online on their website and do an online chat if that's the best fit for you. And really who this is designed for is anyone who's experiencing any thoughts of self-harm or suicide, people that are concerned about someone else in their life having an emotional crisis, and then really any sort of emotional stress. So if it's depression or anxiety, if you're feeling isolated, if you feel lonely, if you've kind of found yourself in a way that you're not interested in the things that are normally fulfilling to you, I think is an important one to remember. If you have trauma, if you have any mental health conditions, if you have any relationship worries, I think that's a big one. Abuse, and then worries about any drug or alcohol use. I think people, if they're wondering if they should call, right. Or text or online chat. It's confidential. There's no cost. And it's an amazing resource. They do some follow-up. And I think it's a really good safety net in a rural community where we don't have as many resources as we would like to have.
Yeah. Yeah, and what a great step towards just feeling a little bit better, right?
Yes.
Picking up that phone. Exactly. Yeah. Wow. Well, just some fantastic information. And during the break there, we were just chatting a little bit about kind of what we all do personally to kind of keep ourselves mentally balanced and that kind of thing. You guys had some great suggestions going on there. Why don't we talk about that for a minute or two?
Yeah, I can start. It took me a long while to figure out what kind of centered me, and it's being outside and it's exercising, and so I became a runner late in life, around 40. Never done any of that athletic in my entire life before then, and yeah, that's my go-to if I'm really feeling kind of wigged out and just can't get my head on straight. Some kind of run and almost any kind of weather really kind of gets me, back to where I need to be. And that's been my go-to now for several decades.
Yeah, very good. And what a great way to break it up. Like if you're, stuck kind of doing the same thing and same ideas and like, nope, I'm going to go out and switch gears and
clears my head.
Clears your head.
Gets whatever. Erin, as a nurse, probably knows more about the chemicals in our body that are released, but it releases all those kind of bad chemicals, helps bring in some good ones, and clears my head up.
Huh. Fantastic. Yeah.
And I mean, I grew up here and we talked about that early on, and just we live in such an amazing place for nature. And we were talking about how important nature is to healing and mental health. And I like to go out hiking. I like to go on a road trip to just, where haven't I seen in this area?
Yeah.
And just getting out and being on a hiking trail and being under the trees and just like disconnecting, turning off my cell phone is a really big one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just anytime you can get out in nature and just take a minute and take a pause, I think is really important for people's mental health.
It's funny. I used to work for Oregon State Parks, and I was out at Cottonwood Canyon, and people would come in, and we had different things we had to do. We were working, but if I could, I would always try to fit in a 5 or 10 minute walk, and it was amazing the transition that would occur in that first 3 to 5 minutes, and people unwind and they start seeing things, like, oh, look at the fish in the river, just these different things, and like all of a sudden things just got easier. Like and then our conversations were much better too. It was just kind of this interesting transition that occurred there. And then I too was a runner late in life. 40, I had a friend who was running and encouraged me to do it, and I did do that for quite some time, but haven't been able to do it quite as much lately, or been doing it less. But I'm walking now. I'm doing that, and then I do this.
Just as good as running.
I love to play guitar, and like you talking about that out of getting yourself out of your kind of thoughts, or focusing on something else. Yep. And it does. I use it, to everybody's chagrin. I don't think I'm a great guitar player, but my wife puts up with me. But that's great. What some great examples.
Yeah, I think hobbies, exercise, nature, and then self-care, whatever that looks like for you.
Right.
And then sometimes just having a good friend that you can call up and chat with, and it can really be some just real simple things that can help anyone kind of get back on the right page again.
Yeah, fantastic. Wow. Well, what a wonderful conversation today. Thanks to both of you for coming in and chatting about. It's kind of a tough subject, but also one that I think there's a lot of hope with too, to make things better. So thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
All right.
Tell me about advertising at CCC News.
All right. We've been on a real roll lately. We're up to 110,000 unique readers this month.
That's insane.
It's insane. And these are all people that are customers for our local readers in the community.
That's huge.
Yeah. So we do advertisements, digital advertisements that are rotated through all of our stories. Think of it like this. Every time we have a great headline rolling out there and people are reading the story, your advertisement can be right next to it.
That's awesome. How many views does advertisers get every month?
Well, they're averaging somewhere between 50 and 60,000 per month.
Ooh, if I was to buy 60,000 impressions somewhere else, that might be like really expensive. Is that right?
It would be, but thank goodness for CCC News, and we're offering people great value. We can get advertising going for folks for $300 month to month. But if you're willing to go a little bit longer, say a 6-month or a 12-month contract, we can get those prices down to $250 a month.
That's amazing. Great. How can people get in touch?
Oh, well, easy. You just contact me, Tom, at cccnews.com. Again, that's Tom at cccnews.com. Or you can reach me at 541-980-2756.
I'm going to tell all my friends.
Right on. Hit.